Dr. Drew, every weeknight 9 Eastern on HLN.
She's in a bathtub, and she's not slipped into the bathtub. She's flipped over, and she's face down underwater. And
Indeed.
I think before we went on the air, you said the temperature of the water?
This is perplexing. This is the one thing that got me. When she was declared dead at 3:46 in the afternoon, the temperature of the water was not taken until later that night at 9:35 p.m. and it was 93.5 degrees 6 hours after she was declared dead.
How is that even possible? Can you...
No
is that
sense.
like a self-heating bathtub?
This, according to the detective at the scene who actually took the temperature of the water, and whilst he says there were no signs of foul play, that is an unanswered question, and I feel that this report really provides more questions than it does answers.
I completely agree with you. Now, Shelley, before we get into the autopsy report here, the spoon at the bedside, you think it was like a little spoon that she's using to spoon cocaine into her nose?
Yes, I would say so.
It's not a spoon that she's using to heat up and do something else with it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm sure it had something to do with
All
cocaine.
right.
And a deviated septum as well was found.
Not a deviated septum, a perforated septum. Perforated septum. So I want everyone to know at home exactly how I read this autopsy report. Here's what we see. Perforated nasal septum. The septum, the thing that separates the two nostrils in your nose, dissolved. It gets dissolved by long-standing chronic use of cocaine. Number 2, she had emphysema from cigarette smoking, undoubtedly. Number 3, she had something called a fatty liver, which is something you get from drinking a lot, and you have to drink fairly recently. We found cannabis in her system. We find cocaine in her system. Everyone knows that. Now, this theory that she had some kind of heart problem, I take issue with that. She had mild, let me say, not even mild, minimal heart disease on this autopsy report. 60% coronary artery stenosis is something that no doctor would ever do anything with because it's harmless. You would watch it over the next 10 to 20 years. Now, the theory they're trying to promulgate is that she must have had a rhythm disturbance in her heart or maybe a clot that formed in one of those arteries and then dissolved, neither of which is there any evidence of in this report. That's a pure guess about what happened to her. But I say there's some other clue in here, her being upside down in the bathtub, and the fact, Shelley, you tell me if this suggests the same thing to you. Low levels of Xanax in her blood, in spite of empty pill bottles at her bedside, which should have had large amounts of Xanax in it. How do you put that all together?
I think that, you know, what we're looking at is possibly some sort of seizure that created her to flip over and unconscious. You know, if you're in the face down in the water and you've had a seizure, you're unconscious.
Here's a way to induce a seizure. She induced a seizure by not taking Xanax after having been on it for a period of time. The blood levels go low, seizure goes up. Cocaine induces seizure as well. Cannabis is of no help here. So she's on all these things that can create seizure. Everything looks like she had a seizure, and they're saying heart disease.
And booze was found in the room as well.
Not only, but she had no booze in her blood, which is another thing that can cause seizure, is the booze coming out of your system. So she may have been trying to get off some of these things and needed more medical supervision. It's kind of crazy.
This question, though. This provides, as I said earlier, more questions than it does answers.
Absolutely.
But is this uncommon? In instances whereby the full report is released, that we're asking more questions.
I got to tell you,
is there any way to determine if she did have a seizure? No,
not that I know of. Unless I'm not a pathologist, maybe they have. So you know what? There's enzymes, there are muscle enzymes you can test for that might be up in her blood system if she broke down muscle from seizing so much. That's
an important thing to note, and we don't want to feed into the conspiracy theories. This is the report from the County of Los Angeles Department of Coroner. The Beverly Hills Police Department is still doing its own investigation, has said all along that they will close this case on receipt of this report. That hasn't happened just yet.
I don't think they should close it because this still leaves open the possibility of foul play. This weird, super hot water.
Hot water is
that's perplexing.
Very odd. That's very odd.
How hot was it 6 hours before? And staying hot all day? There must be an explanation for that. I don't know what that is. But face down, lots of cocaine around her, cocaine in her system, and low levels of the other substances that she clearly had been using because she has empty bottles of large amounts of this.
Going into a bathtub that has hot water, would that be a contributing factor to bring on a seizure?
No, not mine. Not that I'm aware of anyway. Shelley, you had experience with that?
No experience.
Do you interpret this any differently than I do?
No, I think that the combination, obviously, between the low levels of Xanax and the high levels of cocaine can create what we're talking about. Because that's the only thing that makes sense that you would be upside down in a bathtub.
And let's be fair. We're talking. Shelley and I are accustomed to talking about this as though we're talking about some abstract person. You know, this is someone that everybody loved. This was a mother. It is a very sad story, and it is part of the nefarious, treacherous course of addiction. Addiction kills people by so many different means, and that is what this is, another addiction.